How fun is it to watch your friends fall victim to your pranks? Sometimes the tables turn and somebody pays the ultimate price for a sense of humor gone wrong. We're going to explore a few stories of some pranksters that paid the ultimate price. So listen in for the shocking and tragic details of pranks gone wrong. Let me take you back to February 2021 in Hermitage, Tennessee, where a prank meant to entertain was about to turn deadly. Timothy Wilks, a 20-year-old YouTuber, was known for his often daring and controversial videos. Wilks thrived on pushing the boundaries and shocking his audience. He was always in search of that next viral hit. On this fateful evening, Wilks and his friends concocted a plan that would be their most sensational stunt yet. They decided to stage a fake robbery in the parking lot of Urban Air, Trampoline and Adventure Park. Armed with butcher knives, they approached a group of people intending to film their reaction. Dressed as robbers, basically approaching these people, lo and behold, one of the members, David Stearns Jr., believes that they're about to get murdered. Pulling out his firearm, he quickly turns the tables on the pranksters. David Stearns Jr. discharges his firearm, ultimately killing Wilks on the spot. The scene descends into chaos, and within minutes, police are swarming the entire parking lot in the area where this went down. The police investigation was both thorough and swift. Detectives interviewed numerous witnesses, reviewed surveillance footage from nearby businesses, and the videos showed the entire, progression of events leading up to this incident. Captured Wilks and their friends approaching the unsuspecting people, and the footage painted the picture that there was no way for Stearns to basically know that this was a prank, and the police decided this was legit self-defense. One witness said, "I thought it was a real robbery. It was terrifying. We had no idea it was a joke." The incident sparked an ethical debate on the nature of pranking and what it can lead to. Law enforcement officials did make a statement on the case saying that basically pranks that involve criminal activity are extremely dangerous and can lead to tragic consequences. I'm paraphrasing what they said, just FYI. This definitely stirred up a bit of an ethical debate on whether, where can you draw the line with carrying out these kind of pranks, especially on the unsuspecting public. This stuff's been funny ever since I can remember. Even going back to the Man Show, they had this fat little kid that would go around and talk to people in the street unsuspectingly, do things like try and sell them beer. But the only thing I'm going to say is, you can't do pranks in the US. Other countries, Canada, you're probably fine. I think most of Europe, you're going to be fine. Definitely not like Russia or something like that. But looking at somebody the wrong way at Walmart is going to get you shot in most states in the US these days. I think it's not so much a matter of gun control. It's more related to people leaving their house every morning, thinking that they're going to get robbed and that they're going to have to shoot someone. It's a matter of having a weapon of opportunity and having the mindset every day that you leave your house that you're heading into some kind of scenario where there's going to be armed intruders attacking you from every action, and you got to have a tactical plan to watch your back and escape. And basically going to Walmart is akin to doing a fuel run in Mad Max, and having that mindset, I think, is probably where a lot of people go off the rails with this stuff. Not that the guy pranking in this case is in the right, and that is in no way, shape, or form taking the blame off the guy that pulled this stupid prank in the first place, because the guy that had to shoot him, he's going to be fucked up for life. And while the guy that did the pranking, I'm fairly certain he knew on his way out that he made a mistake. And the lesson learned, again, I don't know what the lesson really is, but take the geography into consideration if you're going to do this kind of shit. The same way you wouldn't maybe anger the guy that's 6'5" and 350 pounds. Don't antagonize a man with a gun. I think we're going to be covering 5 or 6 of these cases here. And I don't know, just for shits and giggles, how many of them do you think are going to involve somebody being shot in self-defense? I don't know. Take note and drop a comment if you're packing heat right now. It's pretty cool. Before we move forward to the next story, I just want to drop in and say thank you guys for joining us. If you don't mind giving us a follower, we're going to be putting out lots more stories. It's nice to be back. I took a little bit of a break. I was down hanging out with my wife in Costa Rica. And actually, I was looking into, I had covered a story on the psychopath of Costa Rica. You can see the link in the videos, but I was actually thinking about doing maybe a little bit more of a deep dive on that series and possibly taking a look at some other cases that could be tied to him. So that may be coming in the future. And also I'm going to be dropping a video episode about the research sighting incident for YouTube. Let's move on to a guy named Connor Groom. Let me take you to December 2021. We're in Chigwell, Essex, England. How the fuck did they come up with that name? Anyway, there's a festive celebration going on in ye old England, and Connor Groom is a 22-year-old bricklayer. He's known for his lively spirit and loving fun. Who doesn't love a little bit of fun? So he's gathered out at this place with his buds called the Topgolf, which is an entertainment venue. I guess things are so boring in England. Golf is their excitement. I don't know. Soccer as well. I don't get it. Oh God, I hope my Latin American family doesn't hear me say that. Anyhow, as the evening progresses, maybe a little bit inebriated by alcohol, but hey, why not? They're at Topgolf. And when at Topgolf, you're gonna chug down on some luxury booze, maybe a little bit of that Molson 5-0 or the Busch Lights, and yeah, it's the kind of night you got ahead of you is probably going to be filled with a lot of male camaraderie. So on the edge of this driving range venue, there's like a safety net up where they're drinking and partying. Anyway, and Groom's best friend, Ben Gardner, takes a moment of just feeling so fucking overconfident. He pushes Groom with more force than intended. Just like a mama bird pushing the baby bird out of the nest, Groom falls to the ground almost 12 feet, and he lays there helpless. Because why? He landed on his head. As expected, panic ensues and Groom lays motionless on the ground. His friends immediately call for help, but lo and behold, falling on your head can be bad for your health, and his spinal cord was severed. He eventually succumbs to his injury because he goes hypoxic, meaning like there's no more oxygen going to his brain, and he laid in a coma for almost a month, the poor guy, and he's pulled off a ventilator in January of 2022. Unfortunately, marking an end to his short life and kind of a tragedy for his family. I feel for this dude. So this next part surprises me. The coroner in England does his investigation. He labels this a misadventure, which basically means a result of death caused by a deliberate human act that was unintentional. And believe it or not, the guy is released and Ben Gardner doesn't face any charges. I can't believe that there's no kind of accountability for this, because it's not like he pushed him onto something that was like a foot down. It was 12 feet. Again, what do I know? It's Topgolf. Ben Gardner states that he felt really bad about the incident. There was no malicious intent in this prank, and he's made a solemn vow to never push anybody off of a structure higher than 10 feet. Effectively rendering Gardner no longer a threat to the public. This tragically is the end of this story, and again, I'm sure this Connor guy was just out having some fun, and he was a pretty swell dude, and I don't know if his friend Ben was a bad dude at all. It does surprise me that there was no consequences. Man, if there were minor ones, minor consequences are okay. It doesn't always have to be somebody going to jail for 25 years. Sometimes it can be like maybe just a short period of indentured servitude. Let's move on to the next story. The name is, I might be pronouncing this wrong, but I don't think this guy's going to correct me because he's dead. This fella, Mark Drewis, and it's back in October 2003 in Boca Raton, Florida. What's going to be good? And a seemingly innocent prank is about to take a really shitty turn. 16-year-old Mark Drewis was participating in the classic ding-dong ditch. So a bunch of teenagers running around, ringing doorbells, and then lo and behold, you come to the door and nobody's there. They really bad idea in Florida. That night, Drewis and his friends decide to ding-dong ditch the home of Jay Levin, a man who had grown increasingly paranoid, again, because of burglaries in the neighborhood. So as Drewis approaches Levin's house, he hits the doorbell, quickly turns to leave, laughing with his friends about the prank. But however, in Florida, that's enough for Levin to draw his sidearm, step outside, and shoot Drewis in the back. Drewis collapses on the sidewalk, and basically his life ends right there. So all of a sudden, the neighborhood is thrown into chaos. There's a police presence right away, and they start doing their investigation. The police did look into interviewing witnesses. They looked for video evidence. I don't know if they actually got any. They talked to all the friends anyway and everyone around. And anyhow, Levin, his story to the police ends up being that he's like, I thought this guy was going to break into my house, so I had to shoot him. Trial became highly publicized, drawing a lot of attention to, again, gun control and having guns in the hands of people that are paranoid and ready to pull the trigger with somebody sneezes, boom, got him. That kind of shit. So the trial ends in basically Levin pleading guilty and serving out a jail sentence of 52 weekends. He pays $750,000 in restitution to Drew's family. So there's some justice there. This is just a lesson for anyone out there that is a firearms owner or considering using one for self-defense. When someone's going to break into your house, your car, or rob you, typically they're going to do it facing you. And so if you're seeing someone facing you with a knife, take that as a very credible threat. Typically, people aren't going to be walking backwards to try to break into your house to rob you. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're trying to shoot somebody in the back, it may just be that they're walking away from you. And I know that you're allowed to stand your ground, but I think in this case, you can maybe just be like a little bit more flexible and just forego the whole execution thing. Yeah, man, thoughts of that poor kid, because I definitely did that when I was young. And again, though, just a reminder from before, I did that in Canada. And so it's a little bit different in terms of there's only certain situations where you can get shot by a homeowner in Canada and get away with it. And I'm just going to say, yeah, it's definitely related to racism. And I'll leave it there. Actually, believe it or not, Canada's got some somewhat lax self-defense laws. It's just, again, we're not allowed to carry sidearms with us in public. You can have guns, but you wouldn't say wear a gun to go to your kid's baseball game, hockey game. You wouldn't wear one to go to your kid's piano recital. And I don't know. Amazing things can happen when people resolve their disputes in non-violent ways. But sometimes it feels like in the United States, there's this argument going on against gun control. It really feels like they're just arguing to want the opportunity to play self-defense, play the game of self-defense and execute somebody. Just got that itchy trigger finger waiting to use that gun. They paid $300 for that years ago. And God forbid somebody fucks up your grass, knocks on your door, or maybe they're just pulling a U-turn in your driveway. But today's the day that you're going to defend your piece of ground. And I'm just saying, sometimes you can let it go and maybe leave that gun at home every once in a while. That being said, I'm fully aware I don't know what it's like to experience going to school and getting shot, going to my doctor's office and getting shot. And I think that happens to most people in the United States. So maybe the fear's coming from something I just can't understand. That being said, I'm going to circle around back to the fact that maybe look at a map before you're going to pull a prank. Okay, so we got Florida's out, Tennessee's out, Illinois is definitely out for pulling pranks. So let's talk about Ohio, because this place is also definitely off the list. I think the whole Midwest you can disclude. I'm going to go ahead also and just add Alaska there. So let me take you back to 2006 and Columbus, Ohio. Prank involves eggs is about to turn deadly, and unfortunately, Danny Crawford, an 8th grader at a young age like this, decides to spend his evening egging cars. The boys thought it was a harmless way to have some fun. However, what starts as a simple prank would soon turn deadly. Why do I feel like the word egging could be misconstrued for some kind of weird sex thing? I don't know, like maybe a girl that's ovulating sits on your face. I don't know. So anyway, doing this fun activity, they start whipping some eggs at vehicles, and one of the projectiles strikes a Jeep driven by somebody named Michael Shane Gross Jr. Senior. and also his son, Michael Jr., was in the passenger seat. So the egg got this guy really fired up. You might say these kids were egging him on, but without second thought, he stops his vehicle and both the father and son get out and they decide to chase these kids. Lo and behold, Michael Jr. does have a 9mm strapped, and I'm guessing he's not in the best shape because rather than catch up to these young fellas, he decides to start discharging his firearm at them. And on impulse, he fires shots at the fleeing teenagers. One of the bullets strikes Danny Crawford in the shoulder and exits through his jaw. He dies instantly at the scene. As the sound of gunfire echoed through the valley, 911 is called and police head to the scene. In an act of cowardice, the gross guys decide to try and hide their firearm under the hood of the Jeep. And again, guess what? Try to cover it up. I think the dad tried to take blame, but eventually the police see through the bullshit and they figure that Michael Jr. had shot the guy, and so he becomes implicated as a kind of, I don't want you to say murder or manslaughter in this situation. So the legal proceedings became again highly publicized and there's a lot of attention drawn to this case. Michael Jr. does lead out to voluntary manslaughter, tampering with evidence, and he ends up being sentenced to 15 years in prison. Again, the judge emphasized the severity of his actions and the tragic loss of life in this case. Man, seriously, what the fuck? Like, you're carrying this gun around with you for the purpose of self-defense. And this is just highlights an example of that's what happens when human emotions take over. This dude probably never would have shot anybody in his life, and everybody went home just if that gun was in a locker somewhere. But then again, you're going to have 20 people jump on in the comments and say, yeah, but look at all the people that died because they didn't have a gun. I don't know. I'm all for owning guns. I'm not for having weapons of opportunity on you at all times of the day. This isn't the fucking medieval times. There's not little rapers jumping out of every corner. There's a certain amount of rapists and criminals and murderers out there. Of course, it can happen to you, and it does happen. In some places, the chances are much higher. In some places, the chances are much lower. So I think it just comes down to really asking yourself, being honest with yourself and your therapist. If you feel like you're going to handle yourself well. And so I guess it just takes an honest assessment of yourself and knowing when to leave the gun at home if you've had a bad day maybe, or maybe you've been watching too much Die Hard and it's soaking into you and you've been thinking a little bit about pulling that trigger. Maybe you've been angry at your boss and you're just wishing somebody would fuck with you today. Today's the day I'm going to let it all out. All I need is that one fucking person to say something to me and pow, fuck you and your dog, Tina. And that moment of frustration gets you 15 years in jail. Let's go to another crazy place and talk about a prank carried out by a couple of Australians. So back in December of, yes, this is about Australians, but it starts in London, England, 2012, where a prank call has devastating consequences. Jacinta Saldana, a dedicated and compassionate nurse at King Edward VII Hospital. She's on duty when she receives a call from two Australian radio hosts, Mel Greig and Mike Christian. These radio hosts, known for their provocative antics, decided to impersonate the Queen and Prince Charles. Their goal? Total world domination. To obtain confidential information about Kate Middleton, who had been admitted to the hospital for morning sickness during her first pregnancy. So in the early morning hours, Saul answers the phone and these two Australians, doing their best king and queen accent, inquired about the Duchess's condition. Believing the call to be genuine, Saldana transfers the people to the duty nurse and says, hey, you can release some information. They want to check on the patient. So the prank is supposed to be humorous, but it's about to have some pretty severe implications. So as this conversation and this prank is broadcast on the airwaves in Australia and it spreads around the world, there is intense public scrutiny of this poor nurse who fell victim to this prank for releasing private information about the Duchess to the media. And the shame is so intense that unfortunately this kind of innocent bystander took their life and yeah, decided to be the cause because of the prank, essentially. The radio host in this case did express a lot of remorse for the situation, thinking, yeah, they didn't foresee this going so far. Yeah, like, it's pretty funny what they did, I'm not going to lie. But I think killing yourself over it's a little dramatic, to be honest. But I'm guessing this person had some mental health problems prior to this. And yeah, they didn't deserve to be sent to that shame spiral. I think the public are more to blame than the radio host, because again, what happens, like, people are like fucking piranhas in places like Twitter and Instagram. And I remember when this happened, like, it wasn't the Australian media that like drove her off a cliff. It was the hundreds or millions of people basically chewing her out online and effectively like mass bullying her. But unfortunately, yeah, she took her own life. Yeah, if that had happened in Ohio or any of the lower 48, I imagine she just would have drove down to the radio station and shot one of them in the throat or the dick or whatever. And I'm guessing it would have been self-defense. I don't know what the laws exactly around self-defense in America are, but I'm guessing that they're pro-shooter because fuck, it's a popular sport down there. And that's the thing I don't get. Like, how many dudes are racking up kills? There's this jewelry owner store. I think he killed some 7 intruders before he went out of business over the time span. And this kind of starts to remind me a little bit of hunting bears. So what this means is, like, when you go out and hunt bears, and I know I don't mean the furry dudes, you put out some food in the forest, a little bit of meat, a little bit of fish, some donuts, maybe popcorn, whatever. And you put it on this barrel and the bear comes along and then you shoot it and you can eat it if you want. You should eat it because it's actually pretty tasty. Like this guy at the jewelry store, that's kind of what it starts to seem like is I'm going to open a business so I can fucking kill people and I'm going to bait them by coming in there. Hey, don't rob me. I'm just some poor old guy and I'm waiting there with my revolver. And I'm sure there's quite a few people in the States that have a few self-defense notches on their belt. But all I know is, again, seriously, all the people out there, like, I see so many shows like Borat. Imagine Borat trying nowadays to go out and talk to people in the subway. Couldn't see how he wouldn't get shot. So I just want to, like, really reiterate for anybody out there that's thinking of doing a YouTube channel about pranking people, or anyone that's looking at doing pranks, really consider that when a lot of this shit was filmed like Jackass and Borat, I think things are a little bit less violent. I think things are a little bit more tense these days. And just remember that there's some boomer sitting in his house right now watching reruns of Texas Lone Ranger that's just fucking itching to put one in somebody's chest. And God, you don't even want to deliver food to his house. Hats off to the people that do. And yeah, just take a little bit of extra caution in how you go about your business of pranking. Stay safe out there.